said, well, at least we know there's not much in the fund.
Up to
Is Susan calling in?
so she's calling.
She hadn't seen the emails. He is. He can. His choice.
Welcome. This service is provided by freeconferencecall.com. Please enter your access code followed by the pound sign. You entered 337878. If this is correct, press 1. There is one other participant in this. Please announce yourself.
Hi, Susan. Are you on the call?
I am. Thank you.
Great. Welcome. All right. And Ms. Chambers, if I ever forget to ask if you've got questions or comments, please don't hesitate to speak up. And Tiffany's right by you, so she will hear you and let us know. All right. We have a quorum. Dr. Hill is on his way. We hope Ms. Dean will be joining us as well. So thank you to everyone. I'll call the meeting, special meeting of the State Board of Education to order. Thanks to everybody for taking time to do this morning away from our usual agenda. We do, on behalf of the department, do have one piece of new business that has emerged. And Ms. Hyde is going to come explain it, and after that, I'll ask y'all to vote to place it on the agenda this morning. So I'll turn it over to Ms. Hyde.
Thank you. Our operating procedures and 617-425 of the Arkansas Code allow this board to issue subpoenas relating to covenant keepers, and I can get into more detail later or now. There is a need to issue a subpoena in order to obtain some financial records. So that is the item that we would like to be placed on the agenda at the end of the agenda.
Okay. And I just remind everyone that I think that is specific enough for the purposes of knowing what the topic is. And of course, placing it on the agenda does not lock you into a final vote in terms of whether we take action or not, but this just allows us to consider action. So I'll entertain a motion to add this item to the action agenda as the third item today.
So moved.
All right.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Williamson, second by Ms. Dean. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Okay. We will see you in a bit, Ms. Hyatt. Thank you very much. Our first item of the day, though, is the consideration of probationary status for Lee County School District and Lee High School. And I'm going to turn it over to Ms. Freno to get us started, and I think Ms. Kaufman will also be a part of this opening presentation.
Thank you, Dr. Barth. Lori Freno, Arkansas Department of Education. Following an on-site review at the Lee County School District, the department determined that both the district and Lee High School were in probationary violation of the following standards for accreditation. Lee County School District in violation of 1-C.2.1. Each school district shall maintain accurate Each school district shall maintain accurate student records, including graduation requirements. Specifically, the district did not maintain accurate, up-to-date transcripts, and parents, students were not notified of issues, significant changes such as students waiving SmartCore.
Okay.
Second,
Ms. Freno, just a second. Why don't we wait till we get this technical
I
challenge?
think I made the technical malfunction happen. It just sounded like it was screeching at y'all, and I didn't want to be screeching at y'all. Second, Lee High School was found to be in probationary violation of 1-C.2.2. For graduation, students must have acquired a minimum of 22 units of credit as determined by the State Board of Education. Specifically, students expecting to graduate did not have appropriate guidance to schedule a minimum of 22 units of approved credit, and student transcripts did not reflect the appropriate courses aligned with SmartCore or Core. The district notified the Lee County School District of these violations, of these findings on March 6th of 2019. The district then appealed these findings, and the state board will hear this appeal during its board meeting today as the first step that it should take. If the state board denies the appeal, it must next vote. So that's number one, the appeal. Number two, if it denies the appeal, in that case, it would next determine whether to place the high school, the school district, or both on probationary status for standards violations. If the state board places either the district or the high school, or both, in probationary status, the board may take one or more of the actions set forth in section 6-15-207 of the Arkansas Code. So at this point, unless the state board, unless anyone has any questions, I would like to read the procedures for the appeal. All persons wishing to testify before the state board shall first be placed under oath by the chairperson of the state board. The department shall have, the department goes first, and the department shall have up to 20 minutes to present its case to the state board. The chair of the state board may also allow additional time if necessary. The appealing public school district shall have up to 20 minutes to present its case to the state board. The chair, again, may allow additional time if necessary. And the board may pose questions to any party at any time during the hearing.
Great. And so, so at the end of this appeal process, the proper motion will be to either uphold the appeal or deny the appeal, correct?
Yes, Dr. Barth, that's correct.
Okay. All right.
And will the department have a recommendation?
Yes.
Yes, the department will.
Yes.
Okay. Any other questions about the process? All right. So we are now ready to go. First off, why don't we get everybody? Why don't we go ahead and swear anyone from the district who plans to offer testimony? So if anybody from the district who plans to offer testimony would go ahead and stand and raise your right hand. Okay. All right. Stand and we can swear additional people if it becomes clear that other people need to offer testimony. But for those who plan to testify, do you swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Great. Thank you very much. All right. I'll now turn it over to Ms. Kaufman for 20 minutes from the department.
Deborah Kaufman, Arkansas Department of Ed. First of all, I'd like to say that if you've not had a chance to visit Lee County School District, you are going to meet some of the most remarkable students around. They are so courteous, they are kind, they are engaging. They're just what you would expect of Arkansas students. They're just amazing. I would also like to say that the staff that we encountered were just equally lovely and accommodating to us. So today we bring this to you with a heavy heart, but we do believe that this school district is in violation of 2 probationary items from our standards for accreditation. Now, the reason I bring this to you today is because of the timeline that we're under. We started in February 5th with an on-site monitoring and identified an issue with transcripts. This is egregious, and needs to be resolved immediately. The last day for seniors, my understanding is May 10th. So days are ticking by, and we have a lot of work to do. Without immediate intervention, 35 of the 56 seniors will either not graduate on time, or they will graduate with an incomplete or incorrect transcript. Because of the lack of adult oversight, student transcripts contain errors. Course schedules do not include the required 22 credits. Students were not on track to graduate with SmartCore, and the appropriate documentation for a waiver of SmartCore had not been put into place at that time, which means that parents and students had not been consulted with, and waiting till the last 60 days before graduation is late to be having those conversations with parents. Students were not enrolled in credit recovery as needed, and evidence that they were being supported for credit recovery was not obvious to us. So since that meeting, there was little urgency. We began to go back to ensure that students' needs were being met. We went back February 26th, and as you go through here, you'll see our timeline starting on page 3. On February 26th, Dr. Christy McIntosh, our Standards and System Support Specialist, Ms. Gina Wendell, our Chief of Staff, and I sat with the Superintendent, Ms. Johnson, with the high school principal, Mr. Simpson, and with the counselor, Mr. Taylor, and all of them are here today. We sat with them. We went through every senior transcript and identified what the issues were that we were seeing in Trian, and talked with them about what's going on. Got to get these kids in credit recovery. We're missing these classes. They need to be enrolled in an accelerated program to get their required 22. We went through every one of those. We asked at that time, what can we do to support you? And the counselor said, would you come one day a week and just stay with us, keep us on track? We said, absolutely. We will be there to help you. The next day, we were notified that the counselor was suspended and had been suspended as of February 21st. And that's certainly a personnel issue between the district and the counselor. However, the counselor was there, so we felt that that was a false pretense. We noticed then in reflection that the counselor was not engaged on the computer in eSchool, in Trian, looking at the transcripts. They were taking notes, which was fine, but finding out next day that he was suspended made it make more sense. We were then notified that the counselor was reinstated and returned to work on February 28th. We visited again. Dr. McIntosh and I went back on March 5th, and we once again visited with Mr. Taylor, the counselor, and we went through every one of the transcripts again. At that time, he had access to some things, but not all things that a counselor needs to have access to. eSchool, Trian, Apex, all of the tools a counselor uses. At that time, we did not feel that we were getting, that the sense of urgency to get these students enrolled in their courses was there. They had not been enrolled. Mr. Taylor was enrolling some as we were sitting with him, but there were many that had not been enrolled, and certainly students had not been contacted and their parents had not been contacted at that time. At that time, that afternoon, I shared with the superintendent that we would recommend probation for them, that this was an issue that had to be resolved immediately. We then had another, we sent those appropriate letters as you have on your agenda, and then Dr. McIntosh and Christy Harrell from our Standards and Systems Support once again visited. This time they visited with the high school principal and the high school counselor substitute, Ms. McRae, and again reviewed the student transcripts. We did receive an appeal letter, and then with that appeal letter on your agenda, you'll see additional documentation. In that additional documentation is information about credit recovery classes, the kids that were enrolled. We went through and aligned our notes with those notes in the appeal, and we believe that in the graduating class of 2019, that we still have 12 seniors that need credit recovery courses that have not been enrolled in those courses. We know that based on that documentation, 12 other seniors are enrolled in 30 credit recovery courses, meaning 30 credits worth of courses on top of their senior class schedule. Some students have 2, 4, 6, 8 credit recovery classes to try to complete before graduation on top of their daily schedule. 2 seniors have not had access to the required 22 credits. They still need to be enrolled in into an accelerated class to try to get that done. And we have 10 additional transcripts that still need verification. And so we've had conversations and they say, yes, we have this, but we haven't seen evidence that the students have completed the courses. And that's what we're looking for, hard evidence that, yes, they completed a credit recovery, or yes, they took the class somewhere else, or maybe they're taking it as a concurrent credit at a university. Where's the credit coming from? We need to see the documentation so that we can feel confident that those students are ready to graduate. These kids need our immediate attention. Immediate. We have approximately 46 calendar days to help them not only complete their senior class schedule, but all of these additional courses that they need to graduate on time. Is this a systemic issue? We believe it is. When I pulled up the transcripts, the try-in transcripts for grade 11, I can see clearly 20 students have transcript errors that are just obvious. They have 200 credit hours. So there's data entry errors all in those transcripts, which have to be cleaned up so that you can actually see what the student really has and what they really need. So right now, to our best estimate, 31 of the 44 juniors have completed the on-time credits necessary to graduate if they pass all the classes they're in right now. So they're running about 70%. In the 10th grade, you can see 13 obvious errors. Once again, there's been data entry errors into the transcripts that have yet to be cleaned up, that we have noted from the very beginning of our on-site visits. Grade 9 has 2 students with transcript errors. And as you'll see, the numbers that I'm giving you are our best estimates, and until you have the transcripts cleaned up, you don't really know if the kids are on track to graduate. That's just by taking a look in trying. If you've ever been in there, it's green and pink, and it gives you an indicator whether or not the kids are on track. Now, just for your purposes, I want you to note that this does not reflect their cohort data. This is just actual kids in those classes this year. This is not tracking back all the way to their cohort data. So that'll be another conversation at another time. I did go back and look at last year's graduating class of 2018, and it's very clear, the records are clear, that 36 of our seniors graduated with the SMART Core. 13 had 22 plus credits, but were not reported as SMART Core in try-in, which means they may have graduated on a waiver, but that was not clearly noted. 9 students were flagged for not having appropriate credits, but when I dug into each one of those, I can see that 1 student graduated with 21.5 credits as reported in try-in. Now, once we get in there and we get to working closely with the counselor, we may find that there's additional documentation that was just never entered. So I don't want you to walk away thinking that they were graduating kids with less than. We don't know because of the numerous errors that we're finding or incomplete documentation. There may be better documentation that we just don't see in the system. So in the files, somewhere on paper, there may be information that can report this. Another student graduated but failed English 11 second semester. Can't find any place where the student took that second semester. 6 other kids may have graduated on IEPs. It was not accurately documented into the transcript, and the students failed numerous courses, and I can't see anywhere in there where there was documentation that they took credit recovery or took another class. So I can't say certain, but I can say certainly the transcripts are not accurate, and that is a violation of standards for accreditation. And not giving kids the opportunity for a quality education is a violation of standards for accreditation. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions before Ms. Kaufman sits down? Obviously, there'll be later opportunities as well. But Ms.
Is anyone hearing a feedback on the microphones? Dan, is there something that? Okay, thank you.
Okay. All right, thank you. Okay, all right. Then next up, the district, and y'all can arrange your presentation however you'd like, but you do have up to 20 minutes. And as everybody comes up, if you'll just identify yourself for the record. Good morning.
Good morning. My name is Elizabeth Johnson, and I'm president of the superintendent of the Lee County School District. We are actually appealing this because of exactly some of the things that she said. I became interim superintendent there on March 1st, 2018. So when I came in, there were things already in process. One had to do with the individuals being riffed, so we dealt with that. And after which, the same personnel were there, and they were in charge of everything until July 1. July 1, a new game came in, myself and the first persons we hired. We are now getting a hold on what was going on. Let me tell you about the staff that's there now. The lady here, the gentleman back there, and myself have over 100 years of active service in education. We would never, ever violate any standards knowingly. But one thing, I can know that you should know that I've worked with every commissioner since Tommy Venters. So we know what should be done and how it should be done. Now, the reason we appeal this is number one, because they came in with the guise of, we're gonna help you. So that's what we were expecting. Came in February 5th, first time we ever saw them. We called a couple of ladies here about the errors they say we had. Those errors had to do with teacher certification and licensure, as well as background checks. That was all. Those were the things we were told. How do we know this? Because online, you could see standards. Not until November 15th was it open. So once it was open and we got those standards listed, we were told that these standards would be new and it would be done a different way. So of course, we waited for that. When we printed those standards out to see were we meeting those standards, we could not see them. Now, after November 15th came Thanksgiving. Right after Thanksgiving came Christmas, which was another 2 weeks. So as I said again, we never saw them to February 5th. We did not understand from the very first visit that anything was wrong. 3 people came in, One talked to the federal program, and the other person talked to the counselor from the high school. Now, we did know there were some problems. Well, I'm not gonna tell you there were not problems, but we know our children too. And we know what we can do with our children. And they know us. Now in Lee County, we've done everything we can to make certain those children graduate. And each year they have done so. Number two, this we appeal on is we should have had more notice on this. March 5th was the first time we heard from them about big problems. Very first time. We got a letter on March 5th. And I believe you know calendars. You can see how fast that is for us to answer this. Well, we have pretty much answered everything that we've given 2 documents about what was wrong with standards in Lee County. We have those documents for you, and I believe you'll be able to access them. Everything that they said was wrong. We found all of the information for them because we have it. Again, this has to do with students and graduation. And we will make certain that they are. Now, we're counting down how many students and transcripts they looked at. We went back over some of the same stuff later on after we were given this. And those students were special ed students. They don't come out the right color on that grid. So you have to go back and find that out. We went in to try and we found out that some of the things just had not been put in. Many of those things have not been put in. So we put them in there. And so I don't think there's nearly the students. We came up with about 10 or so, but they were enrolled in classes right now that will make certain, we gotta look at third quarter, that's it now, to make certain they're passing those classes and they will graduate because they're enrolled in there. Credit recovery, we do that every semester, all semester. We have after school, and we have Apex, and we have other programs to make certain they are passing those classes. I'm understanding now there's no seat time. So they go to other schools and get out in a couple of weeks or whatever out of a course. It's not like it used to be. You had to sit there for all those hours. You don't. You can go online and take those courses. And even years ago, you could take a course that was correspondence, and you still can pass and graduate. I know. We did it a many times. So the urgency of this, we feel, might be something less than probationary status because we're a new group. If we were the same people, I might say yes, okay. But we are a new group who knew that there were problems in Lee County. And we came back to solve those problems because we could have been on the beach where we were. We came back in to help the school district. This was a total surprise. And one day somebody gives you all of this information that we don't have. I never heard of this thing she said until now. This is my first time seeing this document. I can't address things that you haven't given me, but I can fix things when I know, and I have done so. I've been an administrator in a school district for over 20-some years. Never once has standards ever come to a building where I was an administrator and just said that we had a problem. We adhere to our problems now, but we don't think the probationary status is correct for Lee County. We do want to be afforded time to take care of our children. They're our children. We want them to have the best education possible. And so we're going to do that, and we are doing that. Another thing is that we thought actually we were going to get a little help. It didn't work out that way because we were put on a high level status when there is a lower level status for this kind of thing. We did have to work hard to get those things because we didn't have access to some of that coming in new. So I'm not appealing on that. I'm appealing on that we didn't have time. Number two, still those things cannot be put on the status of probationary until they don't happen. We have 9 weeks left for it to happen. And I assure you it will happen. Okay, I can tell you other things that we have been doing. We make certain that the children are on those programs they're to be on. We have to, of course, you have to get in the counselor's office because we were not counselors. But we've been in that system now. Well, there was not enough training about that as an administrator, I can tell you that. But one thing, you had to go from e-school to Tri-N to something else before you could find all of this information. There are two people in charge of Lee County at this moment, Ms. Hayden and myself. Two. We work all of this. Staff development, curriculum, everything in the district, we work it together, which is kind of a large plan because of the people not there in positions. But I'm going to appeal to you today that we have looked at every one of those standards. We've gone back to make certain that we are in compliance. This one, we have to, of course, we're still working on this one. I'm not going to tell you we aren't. We're working on this one to make certain we're in compliance and that children will graduate. We don't want to keep them anyway. We want them to go on, just like their parents want them to go on. But as I said, the Google Doc is there. We have plenty of those we sent to Ms. Coffin, as well as Ms. Webb. And you can see them, I'm sure, if they give you access to it. You can see every standard that we had to meet, every statute, and we did that. We have a plan in place coming up that this won't happen again. The plan is, we've already sent out letters to those parents and those students. We have documentation that we've done so. The students have signed to say which course they would prefer to take. Well, you know, when they signed early on in 6th grade and 7th grade, they said smart core, but then later they do not want to take the challenge of that, so sometimes they go to the next school because they go technical and career. So that is probably what an issue was, but of course, as I said, we've taken care of that one. The next thing is after school, summer school, all of those areas have been taken care of. Children who will come get credit recovery, personalized, not necessarily on the computer. We also have a plan in for the summer, and we do notify all parents if they're failing. We call them. We do what we can to get students in summer school. That is one way of keeping them on task and not letting them fall behind. There are some things is that teachers have allowed some of these students, also according to things they want to do, have allowed them to do projects in order to get a grade. Well, that grade sometimes has not come in on time. And so we're getting those grades in right now of those students who lack a grade. Those teachers have sent me emails and told me that those children are getting, they've passed them on those particular projects that they had to finish. Any other issue that has to do with students, we've approached it. We have a plan in the document that you have access to. I think you do anyway. If not, would you ladies give them access to those documents? There are plenty of them. We have a box full of those documents right over there, assigned by parents, signed letters, certified letters. We have approached them the way we can, and of course some of these students are 18. They have to sign for themselves. And they let you know, I signed for me. So we say, okay, we've done that. We let them know that's also in policy. How can you become a sophomore? You have so many credits you must reach. Otherwise, you're still a freshman. We do the same thing as an 11th grader as well as a senior. So we are documenting and doing the things we should be doing. And as an excuse for a year, but I'm telling you, I haven't been back there for 1 year this month. And again, it was not given to us the things that she told you a few minutes ago. That documentation is brand new to me. All they told us was about, they said 22 students, I believe, at first. That was the first I heard from somebody. I wasn't in on all of them, because I couldn't be. And that's when we decided to tackle it again. The counselor knew. And as I say right now, and as she said, the counselor is no longer the one in charge of that and no longer there. We have a trained staff being trained more to make certain we can follow what's going on. That person's name is Miss Jarrett. She's there right now working with a different counselor to establish what can happen for these students. Again, I thank you for listening to me, and Ms. Hayden has more information, a little bit more. She can give you the documents and where to find them on your computer. But those are things that I think we can take care of within this 9 weeks. Excuse me, 9 weeks? Getting dry mouth. But I believe we'll take care of it. We certainly want to see those students get out of school and move on. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Johnson. All right.
Good morning. My name is Mary Hayden. I'm the Federal Programs Coordinator / District Coordinator for Lee County School District. I do not have anything else really to offer in addition to what Superintendent Johnson says, except for I have sent the documents to Ms. Kaufman, Dr. McIntosh, and Ms. Tracy Webb. So I do not have all of your email addresses, but they can share the documents that we've provided to them. It will include the information for the 2 standard violations that you all are looking at today, as well as other violations that we, well, they're not all violations, but they were brought to our attention as things that are being monitored, so we wanted to address all of them. So you will have that information, and they can be shared by Mrs. Kaufman, Dr. McIntosh, and Ms. Webb. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Are there any questions of either of anybody from the district? Mm-hmm.
I was wondering if you gave interim tests so you would know how well your students are progressing, and whether or not they are in fact mastering these courses.
The interim test that we're giving this year come from iReady. We're using that particular program this year, so we've given that 3 times a year. We've given it twice, and we have it coming up, as well as the STAR for K2. And we also use ClassWorks. They have a benchmark part there that we use to test our students.
Okay, and is it in literacy, math, and science, or what, the whole?
The test will address literacy and math. So we have the reading and the math. We do not have the science, but we do have literacy and math addressed.
Are the teachers provided the results of those tests so they'll know how to do an RTI or refer them or check for markers of dyslexia or refer to special ed?
They do have the access to take a look at the data, and we've also brought in the consultants from those particular companies to come in and train those teachers on how to look at the data.
And is the information shared with the parents?
The information from the assessments for the iReady and the STAR have been shared with parents.
Okay, and for the superintendent, it's my understanding that we do in fact have standards that were updated from '83, but as far as I know, the standard for 22 credits and SMART Core and what's needed for graduation has not changed. Is that your understanding? Okay, thank you. That's all.
And I'd like to add, that's in our policy, and it's in our handbook.
Dr. Moore?
Yes, I do have a couple questions. So the credit recovery courses that students are now being enrolled in, are those online courses?
They are APEX.
Okay. And so...
And some of them are working with teachers, but
okay.
Mostly it's APEX.
In addition to that, are majority of courses at the high school level taught through online courses, or are they in-person teachers?
The majority of the courses, or the majority of the credit recovery courses?
Regular courses.
The majority of the regular courses are taught by teachers on campus.
Okay. Okay. As far as your high school counselor goes, there is someone employed as a high school counselor right now.
We do have a substitute counselor in place.
Okay. Do y'all have any supplemental services for mental health and college and career readiness?
There are supplemental services. We do work with several of the external providers. They come in and work with our students as well. And then we do have our counselor there Mrs. Johnson may be able to give you more information about that, but we do provide those kind of services, as well as career readiness that comes through the counselor's office.
Okay.
Ms. Hook?
Yes, did we swear in the high school principal?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, I'd have a couple or three questions for that person.
My name is Ernest Simpson, Jr. I'm the principal at Lee Senior High School in Marietta, Arkansas.
Thanks, Mr.
Thank
Simpson.
you. I know that there are requirements of how much time a counselor is supposed to spend with students in actual counseling versus administrative work. So as principal, it's my assumption that you were completely aware of all of these issues that have been brought to us today?
I could say yes. Yes, I was basically aware of it. Yeah.
And how long have you been principal there?
Since July 1.
Okay, and how long have you
2018.
been a high school principal?
Beg pardon?
How long have you been a high school principal?
Since July 1, 2018.
Oh, this is your first time?
I was a middle school principal prior to that. Well, I'd been retired for 11 years, and I was a middle school principal when I retired.
Okay, so this is on-the-job training?
Basically.
Okay, thank you, that's all.
Okay. Questions, Ms. Newton?
I'm not sure who could best answer this, but you said most of them in credit recovery were in Apex, but some of them had teacher-led credit recovery. How are you making sure that they get what they need to complete a course?
Well, we've gone to some of those teachers where some of the children are doing credit recovery, and we've talked to them about giving them the credit that they need and doing the work that they need to get the recovery of the classes.
I guess my question is, how do the teachers make sure that the students have mastered the course to be able to give them the credit?
We give them tests. Yeah.
Okay. According to what you're looking at, how many students do you think right now are not on track to graduate?
From what the last that I looked at it Friday before we got out for spring break, I saw maybe 3 that was not on track. If all the others do what has been told them, they've been called in. I have the documentation showing where they've been called in and told that they need to do this or that, and if they do that, then we got about 2 that probably won't make 2 or 3.
Let's talk about the ones first that you've talked to that are seemingly going to do the work. Are most of them on board with doing the work? Are they having good attitudes about getting in there and doing the work?
All of them have good attitudes about it and are saying definitely they would complete it.
Okay.
Now,
What have
because
you done for the 2 or 3 that you think are not going to be on track to graduate? What are you doing for them?
well, it's not a whole lot we can do for them because one of them is not attending. We hadn't been able to reach him by phone. It's been out a couple of weeks, and I think he's looking at maybe 11 credits to this date.
So you think you probably will have 2 or 3 that will not graduate?
Right.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Anyone else on this side? Actually, I have a question for Ms. Kaufman. If you, I know you weren't in this role before, but the district's previous standards for accreditation issues in 2013 and 14. What was the general nature of those? Do you have any memory?
I don't.
Okay, but they
Memory, you know I don't have that.
I don't believe they weren't graduation. They were other types of. I just can't remember what they were. Okay.
I don't know.
I was just trying to capture the persistence of this particular issue versus some other issues.
So Ms. Knowles is not here today. Rodney Ford is, but we did reach out to Ms. Knowles in the guidance counseling office to see if she was aware of any previous issues, and she said she sent some documentation of previous visits where transcript errors had been an issue that they had counseled with the school.
Okay, thank you very much.
Actually, I have another.
Dr. Moore?
Deb, I have another. Ms. Coppin, I have another question for you. What has the district been placed under a level for ESSA?
No, under state accountability.
Yes.
So for under ESSA, there's two different things. So under ESSA, they have been offered a 1003 grant, I believe is correct. My person's back here, yes. So there is an implied level of support, level 2 support that's been with them. Actually, my intention in going in with them was to offer a level of support to them. But when we did not see immediate action, we felt that our level of support was not going to be met in the timeline that these students needed.
Okay, and looking at the report cards, there's 2 schools in the district and both received Fs.
That's correct.
Last year with very low performance.
That's correct. We did offer immediate support. I mean, Dr. McIntosh has been going every week, but we've been there. She's been there 3 times now, and we've done the same thing each time. So we're not making progress, and these students need progress.
Okay. And has Dr. Hernandez and his team come into the district?
So Sheila Whitlow is here, and she has been providing support.
Okay. Thank you.
Ms. Hook, would you like to?
Yes, maybe, I don't know if it's a question or a statement. My concern for students who, the vast majority of them cannot read on level, is that if they are left to work on a computer for credit recovery, the teacher in me and the parent in me, that doesn't work. So how can you feel comfortable that credit recovery can in fact happen if a student who is significantly below level in reading and math can in fact complete the task without help from an adult?
They're never left alone. There's always someone there going with them whichever room they're in. They're never left alone. But I can tell you, I can assure you that we get the printout on what they're doing. And you'd be surprised they are passing. They are passing. With usually there's an instructor in that room. They don't go home with the computer. They use the computer there in the presence of other adults. And then when the printouts, the last printouts I got of them, they were passing.
And are those adults certified to teach those areas?
Well, maybe not in that area, but they're certified teachers because they could be in, let's say, the science room, but he's monitoring those students if they're doing a recovery.
Right, but if it's a geometry problem or English 4 problem, I know our teachers are capable and bright, but there are some things that we would have to study ourselves in order to be helpful to a student.
As I said, I kind of felt like you feel, but it has not been a big problem as I thought, because one area is geometry, and they passed. So I was kind of like, okay, these children are acclimated to watching TV, to cell phones. They are ready, so they can do it. And plus, usually they can get those tutorials too to help them finish things. So they know how to do that, so they do that.
Okay, are these students planning on industry certification, 2-year college? Do you know what their after high school plan is and whether they are going to be prepared to actually accomplish those things?
I'll say most of them go career. That's what they think they should do. We probably have more children who do that, go into the career field rather than going to college. Although many of them have the college bound where they can go to college if they want to. We do encourage them to go to college. We have the dual credit offered in our school district. And right now we have also with the Career Tech, they go to EACC and they're receiving that line as well as the school line. And so pretty much I think they know they can choose one way or the other. We've been kind of successful, I say, with our children getting jobs and being able to accomplish that for themselves when they're out of the high school.
When these students were, the high school students were screened for markers of dyslexia, how many did you find had the markers and what kind of intervention did you give them?
We just looked at that because we've been audited on every situation. And what we found that in the high school, I believe she had 3 students that they identified as dyslexic. And the one is getting that help. The other 2 actually went to special ed. So what happens here, I say in that 11th and 12th grade area, what happens here is sometimes that they're too low to be classified as dyslexic, which is the word now. And so then they put them in special ed, which is another route for African Americans to go to special ed. Bless our hearts. And so we give them, we have three people there that do that job in Lee County called dyslexic. And so I think they've been taken care of. We know one anyway at the high school that is, and there's 2 or 3 of them.
I would caution you if those 3 people are advising you that there is a level of too low or too high or a racial component to dyslexia, then I think you need to ask for those people to get training because those in fact are not accurate information.
Well, I think the ones will receive that, and according to my knowing and hearing about dyslexia, there was something else wrong, you know, with the person that had, and then get that. But the other children probably need some kind of extra help. So that's why they're put in special education. We do give them, they're from the, I believe it's the Boulder, but they have 2 programs that they use for dyslexic students, and they are being taught with.
Additional question or comments from Ms. Kaufman?
A follow-up to the previous question.
Great, thanks.
In 13-14, they were placed on probationary status 2nd year, and that year it was Lee High School was put on to probationary status, and the district was cited for late cycle submissions. They were put on probationary status for not having the appropriate job codes applied to the right people. And then also March 17th, 2017, the AD, well, actually April 13th, 2017, at the regular board meeting, there was standards for accreditation conversation with the state board, and both the district and Lee High School were put into violation of standards for accreditation for failure to employ a counselor to meet the 1 to 450 student ratio, and Lee High School failure to offer and teach the 38 required courses.
Okay. Thank you.
Dr. Barth, I have a question.
Yes, Ms. Chambers. Mm-hmm. Go ahead.
If we were to deny the appeal, could Ms. Kaufman speak to then what would be different? I guess I'm looking for the contrast. But what additional resources would be brought to bear to address the urgency that we're hearing about relative to this particular graduating class? That's one question. second question has to do with the rising juniors and sophomores and what additional would be done for them to ensure that we aren't facing a similar issue for them their senior year.
Great, thank you. Ms. Kaufman, do you want to?
So if the appeal is denied and you do find them in probationary status, then we would ask that you give us permission to go in immediately with a team and begin working not only on cleaning up these transcripts, but supporting students, making sure that they know what they need to accomplish and to see if they can. If they can't, make sure that we're already getting them scheduled into summer courses, making contact with the parents as necessary to keep them informed. But we need to have some trained counselors on site immediately. We believe there may also be some IEPs that need to be monitored to ensure that those students are actually graduating with the appropriate coursework. So that needs to be done immediately, because if these students have to complete all of this credit recovery, that's a lot of work in a short amount of time.
And I think the second part of the question related to, that's obviously very much focused on this year's graduating students. I think Ms. Chambers was also asking about what would be going on for rising sophomores and juniors.
So the second thing is, then we've got to have people in there making sure the transcripts for the future classes, graduating classes, that those transcripts are all corrected. As I told you, identified those errors, but we need to go in and make sure that those courses are accurately reported in those transcripts. That's the first thing, is to make sure that's happening. And we've got to get master schedules built that don't allow kids to miss the required 22 courses. Those are just the most obvious up front.
And when does schedule building typically happen? Yeah. Okay.
Or already finished in some cases, or all the way into the summer in some schools. So it's immediate.
It's the heart of the season.
Yes.
Okay. Ms. Chambers, did that answer your questions?
It does, thank you.
Okay, Ms. Newton?
Ms. Kaufman, go back to what you said just a minute ago, because you talked fast and I guess I didn't catch it. April 2017, again, what happened then?
Oh, here it is.
Because that wasn't on our timeline, so it's amazing.
No, it wasn't. It was, the question was, had they had previous accreditation issues? Yes, and if you noticed back on your timeline, on June 12th, the state board voted to classify Lee County High School as second-year probationary status for standards for accreditation. And so they had been notified as of March 17th, 2017, that there had been accreditation issues with the employment of a counselor to meet the ratio and failure to offer and teach the 38 required courses.
So was that while they were already on second year, or were they still on second year? Or, I mean,
that's what happened in that year.
So were they on any kind of
They were on
status?
probationary from the year before as well.
So they were still on probation and they still had a standards violation. And so are they under any kind of probation right now?
They are not.
Okay, so apparently they, at that time, cleared this up.
At that time,
This was cleared up?
yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Ms. McFetrich?
Ms. Kaufman, you talked about bringing in trained counselors to help. How many are you talking about? And are they trained counselors from the department that you bring in? Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yes, we have 2 persons from our counseling office here at the department that are prepared to go in this week and begin to assist. And then we've reached out to our partners to say, are there retired counselors that we might be able to hire to come in and assist as well? And so we have some that, we have names and numbers as needed if whatever's decided today.
Would they have to be on probationary status in order for you to bring the additional counselors in?
Well, maybe I need to talk to my counselor back here. If there had been an agreement, if we had had a relationship going in, we could have come to a mutual decision to get that done together. We felt like when we went in on February, I don't have my date in front of me, February, whatever that was.
5th.
And then found out the next day that the counselor that was there was suspended and wasn't supposed to be on staff, that we weren't sure that what we were being told was the complete truth. And so at this time, I'm not sure that that relationship would produce the results that these kids need quick enough.
All right. Are there additional questions?
I wondered, are any of your board members here? Are any of their board members here? I know Mr. Simpson's on the board at Helena, West Helena, but he's not on this board, right? No. Thank you.
Yes, yes. I'm getting notes about public comment. So yes, please come forward.
I would like to kind of let her know, as you, we have no problem with that. Anyone coming in to help us. The point is, we have a retired counselor of over 30 years experience who worked in Marvel, and she is in this position right at this moment to make certain that we carry out the things we are telling you we're going to do. Coming up the first week in April, we're going to get those students who are in the 11th grade, as we have done years to past when I worked in Lee County. We had every student to come. His parent came, and they looked at his transcript, and we made certain it was done correctly so they could get out of school. We don't want to keep them in there over the years they're supposed to be there. We are concerned very much about their reading. We want them to read too. But we have a plan that we can do this, but if they're going to help us, we have no problem. So we don't want to establish like we don't have a relationship. We will have a relationship because we need help wherever we can get it. But right now, Ms. McCray is there, and she has already begun talking to all students. And then we have a person who would do the manual stuff of putting the grades and putting the things in order. That's Ms. Jarrett. Now, we might look for the new thing that's going to happen with counselors, where they come in and counsel students. But we're inundated with people coming from those services in the school all the time, helping mental and all of those. We got a lot of those agencies coming in, and their parents have assigned them those people to help them. So that's why we don't necessarily need somebody talking to them all the time. But we do need them to go into the right course. The principal and I will do the scheduling. We just did it in January. We changed so that those 8th graders will get in 8th grade courses, straight line. And why we haven't gone to the 9th grade is because it was already kind of set up, but we have been people who have talked to the counselor, and the counselor was there. I did suspend him, but I had to once I found out it was as egregious as we were thinking it was. But it was not quite that egregious because we went back to look to make certain Jim, Sue. One person they named to me came to that school February 9th. When they came back, they found this student, but that student had just come. No, we didn't have any records on him because the records hadn't made it to us. So there are issues like that that happen that you're not sure who he is, where he is, and why you haven't gotten the grades on him. We had a student with no grade in 11th grade, but she was at another school. So we did find the part where she had been in another school, and now we know she can go on. So it's just small things sometimes like that. We don't intend to hurt children. We don't intend to hurt children. We intend for them to graduate And we're not here for the money. If we were, we would probably be in some corporate place. We're not here for money. We're here to help. And we've been at that school district, I have for over 30 years in that one town. I have a home there. I would hate to lose that school district because we have nothing else in Lee County. So I just want to make sure that you know that individually, we know who they are, 1, 2, 3, and probably know their mama.
Thank you, Ms. Johnson.
Excuse me. Without going into personnel issues, can you tell me why you felt that it was the total responsibility of the counselor and not the principal?
Well, I don't think we really felt that way, but that's what has been, you know how you have a precedent for that. They kept the records, they've done this, so you allow them to do that. You don't make them do it. That's just what they feel is their job that they do. Now, what has made that job a little bit more difficult is with e-school. There's so many things to do in e-school, and to keep up with, send a letter home if he's absent, call a parent, get the grades in. It's just it's a multitude. So what we did, we assigned a person to that. Her name is Miss Jarrett, as I said. So she had to learn this stuff. Miss Rhodes is coming to that district this week to help her get to be a master at this, okay? So she can get, and that this matches this, that matches this, so that the students, we can put it all in one pile, what they're doing. But beforehand, you had to do it hand. You had to do it here. You had to hand a piece of paper to people. But we are trying to make certain we can make this more manageable for the counselor.
Thank you. All right. Thank you, Ms. Johnson. Okay. Appreciate it very much. So if there are no other questions, we do have one request for public comment on this item. And so if the board is willing, I would entertain a motion to hear public comment on this item. All right. Motion by Ms. McFettridge. Second by Mr. Williamson. All in favor say aye. Aye. All right. And so Ms. Stanley is the one, welcome. And you will have up to 3 minutes, and the floor is yours.
Dr. Barth, thank you.
Sure.
To Commissioner Keys, the State Board of Education. My name is Felistia Stanley, and I am the former high school principal at Lee Senior High School. So I wanted to just talk very briefly and give some background on some of the concerns that has transpired in the counselor's office. When the new superintendent took seat in July, I had actually had conversations with her in reference to the lack of skill set that I had observed and to the manner where we had transitioned to an intensive support plan. Okay. The superintendent decided to get with the counselor, and they removed the oversight for the counselor from my office. We had secured the services of Mr. Ronnie Hughes to come in. He was there approximately 2 or 3 years to provide that in-depth support in the counselor's office. So I was a little perturbed, if you will, when Ms. Johnson alluded to the former team, which I was a part of. So yes, the support was there. No, the current superintendent did not support the recommendations that were made to her at an open board meeting in Lee County in reference to securing the continued support of Mr. Hughes to provide those services. One of the things that Mr. Hughes and I had done prior to this particular counselor coming on board is we had conducted transcript audits of each scholar at Lee Senior High School. And after each semester, we would update those audits. That information was given to the current counselor. And I had regular check-ins with the counselor to make sure that we were on track until the superintendent pulled that from under my umbrella as the high school principal. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Okay, so the question before the board relates to the appeal from the district, whether to uphold that appeal, whether to deny that appeal.
I move to deny.
Second.
Okay, motion by Ms. Zook, second by Mr. Williamson. Is there additional discussion on this item? All right, then a roll call on this. Motion is to deny.
Ms. Zook?
Yes.
Dr. Hill? Yes. Mr. Williamson?
Yes.
Ms. Chambers?
Yes.
Ms. McFetridge?
Yes.
Dr. Moore?
Yes.
Ms. Newton?
Yes.
Ms. Dean?
Yes.
All right, so that is unanimous. And so the probationary status is affirmed, and I probably should have clarified, and that was both for the district and the high school. Was that the intent of everybody in consensus? That was the intent. I should have.
Do I need to state that?
I think as long as we agree that was the intent of the, I just wanted to clarify that for the record. And so we now need to consider action. I believe there is a recommendation from the department. Is that from the commissioner or from?
Well, I have a recommendation. I'd like Ms. Freno to come and describe the options that are before you, and then I'll follow up with the recommendation from the department.
Lori Freno, Department of Education. There are several actions that State Board may take, and they include requiring a school district to reorganize or reassign the administrative, instructional, or support staff of a public school, require a school or school district to institute and fully implement a curriculum that is based on state academic content and achievement standards, including providing appropriate professional development at the cost of the school district, remove a particular school from the jurisdiction of a school district and establish alternative public governance and supervision of the school, require a school district to close down or dissolve a particular school or schools within the school district, annex the school district, or annex a school district or districts or part thereof with another receiving school district or districts pursuant to the authority of 6-13-1401 and this subchapter, consolidate a school district or districts or parts thereof with any school district or districts or parts thereof to form a resulting district, reconstitute the leadership of a school district by removing permanently or suspending on a temporary basis the superintendent of the school district or any particular board members of a school district. The state board shall have the authority to appoint an administrator or to call a special election of new school district board members to administer the affairs and provide governance of the school district or both. And finally, take any other appropriate action allowed by law to assist and address a school or school district's failure to meet the standards for accreditation.
Any questions, Ms. Freno? Okay. Thank you.
Okay.
Commissioner.
Thank you, Dr. Barth. Part of the information that we provided was a timeline. And as you see, the Lee County School District over the last 5 years has had a lot of history with the department and the board. In light of that, now obviously the decision you make today can only be made with respect to this particular item that's before you, but in light of that history and due to the severity of these violations, a history and violations that seem to transcend across various administrators and folks that have been in charge of meeting the needs of students there. The department recommends reconstitution of the leadership of the school district according to Arkansas Code 615-207 by removing permanently the superintendent and the board of directors. Further, the department recommends the state board delegate authority to the commissioner to appoint a person as administrator to the affairs of the district under the supervision of the commissioner. Be glad to take any questions on that recommendation.
We'll start on any questions, Dr. Moore, Ms. Williamson, Ms. Zook. Any questions?
The reconstituting, would that expand beyond central office to the administrators of the school or schools, or will it? Does that your recommendation specifically just address central office?
The recommendation just follows along with the item number 7 of 615-207C, and it only addresses the superintendent and the board.
Do we, as state board members, have it within the letters of the law to go beyond that?
I would defer to Ms. Freno on that question.
Lori Freno. Ms. Zook, it depends upon the action that the state board would want to take, because C8 is pretty broad. Take any other appropriate action allowed by law to assist and address a school or school district for failure to meet the standards for accreditation.
I want to go back to Dr. Moore's previous question about when the kind of state accountability, what level of support of the recommendation for that. What timeline are we looking at for that, for this district, in terms of that? Do we have any ideas?
Depending upon the action of the board today, we'll determine what recommendation that we would take back to the district for the level of support. But we are already in there supporting the district. We just need to ramp it up aggressively. So we would make any adjustment to the level of support based on your actions today.
Okay. All right. Ms. Dean? Anything? Okay. Ms. Newton? Ms. McFetridge? Ms. Chambers?
No, Mr.
Okay. All right. So you have heard the recommendation from the department?
I'm sorry, can we hear that again? Would you
Sure.
mind?
It's a recommendation of the department to reconstitute the leadership of the school district according to Arkansas Code 615-207 by removing the superintendent and the board of directors. Further, the department recommends the state board delegate authority to the commissioner to appoint an administrator for the affairs of the district under the supervision of the commissioner.
I'm ready with the first motion that may need to be discussed.
Okay. Ms. Luke?
I move that we take the recommendation of the commissioner and the department and add to that also the principal of the high school.
Ms. Freno, would you like to speak to that? The appropriateness of that addendum? Yeah. Take your time. Sure.
Based on your recommendation, when you said that was broad in there, that once you do that, you have the latitude to do whatever seems necessary, right? Is that correct, Commissioner?
Right. What I'm asking is, the law says that the board appoints an administrator.
Right.
There are other sections of the law that allows you to delegate that to the commissioner, and we don't have anyone to present to you today for your appointment. So that's why I'm asking for the delegation of that authority.
And then that individual can, when you say can do whatever necessary, can make any other changes that they see need fit, correct?
Subject to the limitations of statute. So when you're dealing with employment, as we've discussed a number of times, you have limitations.
So is what Ms. Zook is asking for, would that have to come from a motion here, or could that person who you place in there make that change?
I think the removal happens here if Ms. Freno confirms it, the appointment of that person, and would be subject to the administrator that's appointed for the day-to-day operations.
It's just not perfectly clear from the law what reconstitution means. It's the administrative staff. I mean, certainly a principal would be under the Teacher Fair Dismissal Act at this juncture. So it's just, I mean, it's not clear, but that's not something, even if the board today didn't make a recommendation with regard to the principal, that's something that could be considered at a later time.
I guess what I was hearing from the reports is that time is of the essence, and that person may be standing in the way of getting that done quickly.
Time is of the essence is what I was hearing as well, and certainly under the Teacher Fair Dismissal Act, there are provisions for which someone covered by the act can be removed if it's for some kind of, for cause. And that would just be the question, is if there is cause to remove them. The Teacher Fair Dismissal Act would not bar that.
So if a person is in charge of a high school as the principal, and the school is found to be in violation, so therefore on probation, ultimately that is that person's responsibility. I would see that as cause, but I trust you as the attorney to help clarify that for me.
That just might be something that could be looked into as a part of an overall analysis of where the systemic problems came from, what went wrong. That, I mean, certainly whether or not the principal should be retained could be a part of that inquiry.
Dr. Barth, can I make a comment? I have a difficulty making personnel discussions in public like this and talking about people who have contracts, and I just don't feel like that's appropriate for us. I think that would be appropriate for whoever the new superintendent is, and take the proper channels. That's my opinion on that. So.
Yeah, I guess because we have to notify people before May 1st, and that's why I asked Ms. Farino and the commissioner to give me guidance about what can and cannot be done. What can we do to help these children the most today?
So
you have to also respect that we're talking about a specific person. So I have a real problem with that.
So just
the superintendent.
So just to get things focused here a bit, the motion did not, as stated, the motion did not get a second, correct?
Correct.
Okay, and so my question is there a second to the motion that was stated as it was stated? Okay, so there is a second to the motion as stated, and it was essentially the recommendation of the department with the addendum that we've discussed. Additional discussion of this motion before we move to a vote. Dr. Hill?
I'm not sure we got a motion made. I think he told what the recommendation.
No, you made the motion, Ms.
I know, but it didn't get a second.
Yes, it did.
Oh, I'm sorry. I apologize.
Thank you. Thank you. Dr. Hill?
No, that's okay. That clarifies. I'm good. That's you. I was confused.
Great. Okay. Is everyone clear on the motion, including Ms. Chambers?
Restate.
Okay. I will restate the motion. I'll try to restate it. So the motion is that the commissioner, as the commissioner stated under Section 613, 615-207, subsection C7, that there would be reconstitution of the leadership of the school district by removing permanently or suspending the superintendent as well as the entirety of the school board. The board would provide to the commissioner the power to appoint a new superintendent for the district, plus specifically the superintendent of the high school would be removed as part of this. It would be The principal, excuse me, the principal, and that would be under, it appears, section 8, subsection 8 below.
And that was my question to the commission, that's what you want.
Our recommendation was what I mentioned, and Ms. Zook added the principal.
Dr. Barth, can I make a comment? Or
Yes, please.
right. I just wanted to, I wasn't sure if it's the right moment, but I certainly applaud Ms. Zook's sense of urgency on ensuring that there's no perceived impediment to moving quickly to get the right things done. But my sentiment aligns with Ms. Newsom, Newton, which is about this being a bit of an overreach for us potentially. We don't have all the facts. We don't know. And I'm assuming that the appointee made by the commissioner, by the Department of Ed, would be able to make that determination if it were needed. So just wanted to offer that point of view.
Okay. Thank you. Dr. Hill.
And I want to echo that, kind of like when we were going with the LRSD, when we told the superintendent, you got a scalpel and a hatchet. I remember using, and we don't know which one needs to be used because we're not there. And I just think giving the person who you select to take that type of leadership in that situation would be the person we entrust to make all those decisions at that time. And that's where I'm most comfortable, but that's just my
All right.
I'd be happy to withdraw my motion as stated. I do understand the point. I just know that sometimes when we go into districts and we depend on the leadership to do things in a timely way that, in my opinion, is in the best interest of children, it doesn't always happen that quickly. But I'm happy to withdraw the motion with that caveat.
Okay, so you are withdrawing the motion, Mr. Williamson. You've withdrawn your second. Okay, so there is no motion on the floor, Dr. Hill.
But no, I'm in total agreement with you that we must move expeditiously for our children. 100%. But I guess I will go back and state that person that the commissioner appoints, and if there is no law for that person to move on that day to make it happen, then it can happen almost the same period of time, unless the law impedes that, correct?
Correct.
I think that's
is that
correct.
right?
I think
that's what Ms. Freno said.
Okay.
Dr. Hill.
So, because I think we all agree that we need intervention immediately.
Okay.
Make a motion to accept the recommendation of the department as stated.
Thank you.
Second.
Okay, and everybody is clear on this motion. All right. Any additional comments before we move to a roll call? Okay, roll call.
Ms. Zook?
Yes.
Dr. Hill?
Yes.
Mr. Williamson?
Yes.
Ms. Chambers?
Yes.
Ms. McFetridge?
Yes.
Dr. Moore?
Yes.
Ms. Newton?
Yes.
Ms. Dean?
Yes.
Okay, that is unanimous, and we appreciate the work of the folks from the district, and we appreciate y'all being here today. I do have a question for the commissioner in terms of what expected timeline we should have
Yes,
about
sir.
leadership.
I would, and thank you for that. I was going to ask if you would allow me to kind of talk about next steps. So Dr. Hernandez, State Superintendent, Office of Coordinated Support and Service, and his team will immediately take on the role for at least the remainder of this week, and we anticipate by the first of next week identifying someone to be appointed to be the superintendent. Don't know if I know y'all noticed Forward Arkansas is here, and I want to talk about what we will be asking Forward Arkansas to do. They have relationships, they have work that they have established in Lee County. I'm going to ask that they continue that work and maybe even ramp it up, and we will work with them to determine how we can do that to build support within the community for what needs to happen for the long-term benefit of the students of the Lee County. Certainly, Ms. Johnson's appeal when she said that the school is what they have. It's the only thing they have, and we understand that, and we do not want that to go away. It is not our intention whatsoever to see a situation where the Lee County School District, the Lee County Trojans, the essence that there in Marianna, that it is not our intent for that to go away. It is our intent for that to be built back up for long-term benefit. We have learned a lot over the last few years. Those of you that I think Ms. Zook, Dr. Barth, you may be the only two members remaining on the board in the last academic distress action that the board had to take with Lee County. We've learned a lot about how to help districts get better. And as you know, the old version of academic distress, the old methodology did not work well to prepare a long-term foundation for success. We know better now how to do that, and it is our intention and commitment to work with the personnel, the students and the parents primarily, and with the community through the help of supporters like and support network like Forward Arkansas and others to establish that foundation for long-term success. So starting with Dr. Hernandez, moving on, and we'll make you notify you as soon as we identify a person that would step in, as I said, hopefully at the beginning of next week to begin that work. In the meantime, not just Dr. Hernandez, but as Ms. Coffin mentioned, the full resources of the department with standards and system support, as well as our Mr. Ford, Ms. Knowles, the team from the counseling unit in the department, and any others, curriculum, any others that we need will be directed to provide whatever support is necessary.
So I do thank Dr. Hernandez and the folks from Forward for your work. I do have a couple of additional questions. Do we have as part of this strategy, do we have a communication plan to the faculty, staff, students, and parents of the district?
That will be priority one. Obviously, there were certain things we did not prepare before knowing what the decision of the board would be, but that is one of the first things that will happen. We have a operating procedure now that we did not have before, that what takes place during the takeover, and that communication is first and foremost one of those things that will be taking place. Nuts and bolts, issues with bank accounts, issues with all those types of things of the day-to-day operations. So yes, that is going to take place. I also want to point out that the team from the co-op is there, the Educational Service Co-op, there, Crowley's Ridge, which this is, not Crowley's Ridge, Great Rivers Co-op, which they are a member, is here, present. Express appreciation for them being present, but they will also be part of this effort of bringing support into that district.
Thanks. Ms. Kaufman, did you have anything you wanted to add? Okay. All right. Are there any additional questions? Okay. All right. Thank you all very much for being here. And I think that action item is ended for today, but the action is not ended for today as we move forward in Lee County. So good luck to all of you. All right, y'all good to move to the next? Thank y'all. Y'all ready to move? Okay. So our second item on the agenda is an issue that arose when we were in Springdale 2 weeks ago, and this is okay. Let's take just a very brief 3 to 5 minute break. us back to order. And the second item that we have on the agenda, you remember from 10 days or so ago when we were in Springdale, and the conversation about the new Teacher Salary Enhancement Act and how it would affect the waivers that so many charters have for teacher pay that's below the state minimum. And so I'm going to turn it over to Ms. Hyatt to get us through the information that we asked for at that meeting.
I went back and watched the meeting, so I wrote down all of your questions. So I hope that I have gotten answers to all of them. If I missed something, let me know. So I'll just start by addressing in general, not specific to the teacher salary law, about how new laws or changes in laws impact existing waivers. And there are really kind of three options, and it just depends on the complexity of the change to the law or the rule. So the first would be a change in law that doesn't really change the context in which the waiver was granted. And so the teacher salary law is really a good example of that, because as it was written, it really just changed the numbers that were in the grid that were in the law. So those that came before and asked for a waiver of teacher salary so that they could do something different with their teacher salary, asked for a waiver of that whole law as it exists. And if you're just changing the numbers, it doesn't really change the intent of granting the waiver. So those wouldn't really require any change or updating in waiver. The second would be something that either repeals an entire section of the code and places it somewhere else, or changes the law so significantly that we would need to come before you, either individual schools or as a group, as we have kind of done in the past, to change that. And a good example of that was either in 2015 or 2017, the ALE law was completely repealed and moved to a different code section. So we still have a lot of schools that have waivers under that old ALE law that doesn't exist, or did until we kind of updated their waivers through this standards process. And so they had waivers of something that didn't really exist anymore. And in that situation, we'd really like to see people coming in, updating their waivers to make sure they have a waiver of an actual law that's in place. The standards are also another example of that, where they were changed so much so that the waivers before were kind of repealed, and they had to come before you to get waivers under the new standards. The third kind of option is this gray area where they might have a waiver of a particular section or for a particular purpose, and the law changes somewhat and may or may not require that they come and renew the waiver. And so that's kind of on a case by case. Some of the things that I think we'll do at the department moving forward is, one, making sure that the charter office is communicating with those that have waivers when there are new rules and laws, to make sure that, if we have to do something that's like a big law change, that we can help them like we did with the standards. And then also legal, when law and rule changes, or when rules change, we issue commissioners' memos, and we'll make sure to begin adding something about waivers at the bottom of those memos. Specifically to teacher salary. So I kind of gave the answer away in the beginning, but as it's written, all that changes are the numbers that are in the grid, which does not change the context in which those waivers were granted. So they were granted a waiver of the teacher salary schedule, which was the grid. They still have a waiver of that grid, even though those numbers have changed. That's kind of, the numbers have changed in the past before, and that's how it was handled then too. So although it was the governor's initiative to kind of do this, and it doesn't change why the waiver was granted, but that's not to say that the fact that it was a governor's initiative could not be considered in any future granting of that waiver, either by the charter authorizer or by this board. One of the questions, Dr. Barth, that you asked was about budget implications, and I think that since no one is going to be losing the waiver immediately, that probably the budget implications are not as we might have thought they were if people were going to be losing the waiver, so they can continue on with the waiver. So this board, you can't call in everyone with a 1240 waiver and say we want to take away your 1240 waiver. There's not a provision in the law that would kind of allow you to do that. Open enrollments and district conversions that hold the waiver, the charter authorizer has the ability to modify that if there was reason to. The charter authorizer can also require reporting on that particular waiver. And another frustration I think this board feels sometime with 1240s is that you can't always require their reporting, but you can ask that they voluntarily engage in the reporting and include that in the reporting. Our rules for the teacher salary as written now in the draft, those that have the waiver aren't eligible for the additional funding. So that may incentivize some to give up their waiver so they can be eligible for the funding. Because I think there are schools that have a waiver that also meet the minimum salary schedule. And how they would do that is either coming before the charter authorizer for charter schools, or if it's a 1240, coming before you to relinquish the waiver. I did do a review of who all has the waiver, so I'll just share some of that information with you guys. Only one 1240 waiver, and that's Helena West Helena. It expires in 2021. Almost all open enrollments have the waiver, except for in Bowdoin Area Charter School, Arkansas Arts, Southeast Arkansas Prep, and Little Rock Prep. But Little Rock Prep, you guys granted it last meeting, so it just hadn't been updated yet. There is also a district conversion that has the waiver. The longest is Lisa, who will not be up for review until 2030. That also includes Ozark Montessori, and then followed by Northwest Arkansas Classical Academy, which will be reviewed in 2028. There are 5 schools where their waiver will expire next year, 3 in 2021, 5 in 2022, 6 in 2023, 1 in 2026, and then the 2 I just mentioned, 2028 and 2030. I think as I talked with the commissioner about this, we're going to begin looking at, as the board requested, to review how waivers impact student growth and achievement, which is something Ms. Zook and Dr. Barth asked that we begin looking into last month, and also research how waivers are handled when law and rule changes in other states, so that we can make sure that we have an informed practice. But for now, this is kind of how we'll handle things. And if there ever is a huge shift or change, you can probably expect to see it somewhat how we did with the standards.
Great. I think the one thing I would ask is, I think oftentimes when renewals happen, there's an emphasis on the new waivers that are being requested, and I think it would be helpful and important to also highlight those areas where they're asking for the same waiver, but the area of the law has changed in some significant ways, just so that there can be kind of a conscious question asking about the continued appropriateness of the waiver. So that would be my one request. But this makes sense to me, Ms. Newton.
You mentioned that one district conversion charter has that waiver. What district conversion is that?
It's Van Buren's district conversion, which is, I think it's called River Valley, but it's an online, it's a virtual program.
Virtual. And when would it be back up for renewal?
2022.
And those who have the salary schedule waiver have been notified that if they keep the waiver, they won't get the assistance from the special fund, or will they be notified of that?
That's part of the rulemaking process that's underway now. So that's all that's in draft, and it, so then right now that's not set in stone. I mean, that's what we would recommend, and that's how we have it drafted now. But we have not finalized anything to be able to communicate that.
I guess I know y'all know better than I, that with budgets going on and hiring and contracts, you know, the timing of the law and the timing of the budgets are not complementing each other.
No, we're well aware, yes.
Painfully.
Yeah. Any additional questions? Ms. Newton, I'm sensing a question. Okay, all right. Ms. Chambers, anything on your end?
No, nothing, sorry.
Okay, thank you. Okay, then we don't need to take action on this item, correct? That was just in essence, a report. The final item, which is an action item, is the subpoena related to Covenant Keepers, and I'll let Ms. Hyatt walk us through this issue.
You all should have a copy. I put a copy of the draft order and the draft of the subpoena on your desk before you got here. So I'm going to go through just a little bit of background explaining why this is necessary, and then I'll be happy to answer any questions. In January, on January 15th is when the charter authorizer accepted the voluntary non-renewal of the Covenant Keepers charter. So then the department started working with Covenant Keepers, City of Fire Community Development, and Friendship, who was running the school, to kind of wind down the school. On the 29th of January, the department sent a letter to the school asking for a list of information, including account numbers and financial information, contact information for all the accounts that they did have, a list of debts, and other financial records. We didn't receive anything. Sometime between the 29th, when that letter was sent, and the 7th of February, there were some items removed from the Covenant Keepers campus, including some filing cabinets. On the 7th of February, we asked again for the things from our letter in January, including the financial records, and received nothing back. On the 15th is when this board immediately revoked the charter, and we stepped in and began an emergency inventory of all of their property and financial records. It was discovered between the 15th of February and the 1st of March that the filing cabinets that were removed included financial documents and information that was necessary to pay debts, do an audit of the school, and to have records of all of the finances of the school. On the 1st of March, we sent a letter requesting the records by the 6th of March. On the 6th of March, I received an email from Ms. Tatum indicating her refusal to turn over the records and indicating a wish to keep original copies of the records for her own record keeping. That same day, I responded and requested copies of all the records, or in the alternative, asked to set up a time that we could come and inspect the records and make our own copies, and I received no response. Since that date, I made several calls to the attorney that she said was representing her, was notified that that attorney was not representing her, attempted to make phone calls to Ms. Tatum herself, was not able to leave a voicemail, received no response, and also received no response to emails or any of the written communications that were sent. Arkansas Code 617-425 allows this board to issue a subpoena, which is what we're requesting that you do, issue a subpoena for Ms. Tatum so that she would be compelled to produce the financial documents that are missing. So the subpoena that you have in front of you would allow her either to produce them by April 5th, or if not produced by April 5th, would compel her attendance at the April 11th board meeting to produce the documents. The other thing that you have in that packet is the order that our operating procedures say that the board issues a subpoena by order. So that would be an order Dr. Barth would sign outlining the facts that I just recited in ordering the issuance of the subpoena.
Okay. Are there any questions on this? My right, my left. This is somewhat extraordinary action. I can't remember doing this before, so this is new stuff because of an important issue. Ms. Chambers, any questions?
No question.
All right. So the proper motion is to pass the order as, or to affirm the order as laid out, which would activate the subpoena process, correct?
Yes, and I have non-draft copies for your signature if it passes.
Okay. All right. I will entertain a motion on this issue.
Move to affirm the order.
Second.
Motion by Ms. Dean, second by Ms. Newton to affirm the order. I'll do a roll call. Be safe. Okay.
Ms. Zook?
Yes.
Dr. Hill?
Yes.
Mr. Williamson? Yes. Ms. Chambers?
Yes.
Ms. McFetrich?
Yes.
Dr. Moore?
Yes.
Ms. Newton?
Yes.
Ms. Dean?
Yes.
Okay,
Unanimous? All right. Okay. That's the conclusion of our action, but we do have one other public comment. Since we've already voted to allow public comment, I'll move forward with Audie Allenbaugh. And you know the drill. You have up to 3 minutes. Thank you. Welcome back.
Thank you for the opportunity to speak. I'm not asking for any action or any comment or anything. I just want to say, as you guys release schools back to local control, I'd like for you all to consider the possibility of requesting a full dyslexia audit like you requested from the Little Rock School District. We're seeing in districts that you guys have had control over, we're seeing the exact same things. They're back to local control. They're doing the same things at the Little Rock School District. Pulaski County is one. You heard comments this morning from a superintendent of a school that now you guys control it. We're both disturbing and disgusting. So I would just ask that you consider requesting a full dyslexia audit. We have multiple dyslexia laws, and apparently some schools just think it's an option to follow those. You got a school district with 80% of the kids are better reading below grade level. It's either dyslexia, dysteachia, dysadministration, or curriculum casualty. I don't know which one, but something needs to be addressed.
Thank you very much. Thanks for engaging. All right, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved. Second.
Motion by Ms. Zook, second by Ms. Dean. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign.
Aye.
And there are sandwiches upstairs if folks want to grab them before they hit the road.